Hi everyone. In today's clip, I want to talk a bit about depression. This is part one of two. Please note that anything I record here is for informational use only and is not intended to diagnose or cure any ailments. Depression is a common and serious mental disorder that affects how someone feels, acts, thinks, and perceives the world around them. So, in short, it impacts their life in a very major way. Depression can also happen at any time and at any age, and its symptoms vary from mild to severe, and it can be quite different in each person. The symptoms can be things that include, for example, feeling of sadness, irritability, emptiness or hopelessness, losing interest or pleasure in activities that once it was enjoyed before, a significant change in appetite or weight, either eating too much or too little, gaining or losing weight, sleeping too much or too little, decreased energy or feeling more tired, and irritability to sit still, pacing, hand wringing, or slowed movements or speech, feeling worthless or excessively guilty, difficulty thinking or concentrating, forgetfulness or difficulty making minor decisions, thoughts of death and suicide or even attempts, outbursts of cry or anger, and feeling of uselessness, and a whole lot more. It is normal to feel sad or down at times. However, the depressed person will go through the symptoms that I counted before most of the day, nearly every day, for more than 2 weeks, along with a clear change in their day-to-day functioning. Now, modern medicine treats depression in many ways, like medication, obviously, psychotherapy, ECT, or electroconvulsive therapy, or just coping and self-help. In orthomolecular medicine, we look into this not just from the physical or just medication and counseling aspect, but a more overall and holistic view. So the first thing to remember is that not all sadness is depression. I've noticed that the minute some feel sad, instead of saying I feel sad, they say I'm depressed. We need to understand that not every sadness or grief or uncertainty and anxiety that we go through is caused by depression. These are normal human emotions that temporarily can impact our lives. So physically, a chemical imbalance like faulty mood regulation by the brain, or a stressful life event, or even a medication side effect can bring about depression. Psychologically, those who have been abused, for example, can experience depression. Spiritually, lack of faith in where we fit, or if we feel we are left alone and have no support, if there's an inner emptiness and uncertainty about future, feeling life being meaningless, and more, can bring about an anxiety that would lead to depression or even aggression. So I also have to mention that there is a term called dark night of the soul. Even though this is technically not depression, it can share many symptoms of this ailment. This typically happens to those who are at the advanced stages of their spirituality, as they feel somewhat disconnected from the world around them. The feeling that generates in them is very difficult one actually to explain, but because they know their connectivity to all, yet feel alone as the parts seem to be disconnected. It has been explained to feel like you look at your body and everything is attached, and you know all pieces are part of one. But your limbs or parts are not feeling related to each other due to such different functions that they play. This feeling for them can last different durations depending on the person going through this transformation. So the most important part of dealing with a depressed individual is to understand all, not just one side of their existence, and try to address it and not just medicate or put Band-Aid on it. If we look at the basics of this ailment, the root word depress means pressed down. In depression, we are pressing down the life force that is within us. This pressing down obviously creates pressure, which in turn will create pain, and it will restrict the flow of life and energy. The big turning point is when we realize that depression is not an external feeling, it is an internal feeling, just like any other feeling and emotion that we create. If and when this realization sort of happens, we need to be doubly careful, because now we can spiral into depression trying to control things externally or internally, or we may recognize that we have a problem and we think there's no way to fix the problem. At a time like this, having a trusted person who will use reason, logic, and understanding to align the perception of this individual is very important, providing that the individual obviously is willing to change their views. In general, those who try to control everything in their lives, or the perfectionists, may and can suffer from depression more than a happy-go-lucky person. Beliefs build our perception. Our perception is our world. A strong, ingrained, and deep chiseled belief system that is based on fear skews and drives perception and leads it to the valley of depression. Then the despair takes over and the flow of life stops. The funny part is that our beliefs are mendable. We can change our belief system and start a new future. Most of us, though, choose to stay pretty closed off and don't transform one bit. Another aspect of depression is generally a complete lack of consideration of the feelings that eventually leads to an inner rebellion and a complete shutdown of the person. The issue in this case is in a lack of connection to the inner self and a lack of process to deal with our feelings. There are also cases where, believe it or not, depression comes from lack of self-confidence. As an example, the person sees or hears something, and because they are looking at the world and translating it through this lack, the perception of what is heard or experienced is very, very different than what actually it is. Most things are taken as an attack, and the simplest comments are translated into the same. I think I've given this story before in one of my clips, but it is good to reiterate it here because it's very fitting. So many years ago, when I used to teach night classes for the Board of Education, I would normally finish teaching around 10 p.m. My class was situated at the end of a very long hallway. One night, when I came out of the class to leave and I was locking up, I noticed that two of my students went into the ladies' bathroom. A few seconds later, I saw the school caretaker show up, and he was locking the bathrooms for the night. So I ran to him and I said, "Sorry, I think there are two of my students still in the bathroom." His reply to me was shocking. He said, "Are you telling me I don't know how to do my job?" I said, "No, I'm telling you that there are two people in the bathroom." At which point they tried to get out, and he realized that what I was actually trying to say, and he let them out. His original response was definitely out of lack of self-confidence and constantly being on the fence and feeling attacked. Since then, I have seen many of these reactions. Those suffering from this issue will not listen and understand the question to reply back promptly, but they will answer the question that they think you have asked. This kind of thinking will bring about overthinking, exaggeration, and eventually, if not resolved, a sense of ever-creeping depression. Society and expectations also create a sense of depression. You will see those who will say, "I never went to university," or "Here I am 60 years old with no belongings to my name," etc., etc. We have been taught that we need to be or do specific things to fit into the society, and if we are not that, we are not good. Few of us will break that cycle and come out and say, that's all bogus. But many take that to heart, and it becomes a point of contention. In cases like this, the person needs to be willing to reevaluate their self-worth. Depression is actually a choice we make, even though it may come on and feel out of our control. It's like sort of being caught in the rain outside. You can stand out there and say you got wet, you couldn't control the weather, or as much as that is true, but you did have the choice whether or not to remain outside when it started raining. In most cases, we need to be reminded that we have a choice. A person with a choice is not a depressed person. A person in power is not depressed. In some cases, also depression is a learned behavior and a must. I recently asked a good friend of mine, what is the purpose of life? And she said, suffering. In a case and a belief like that, the possibility of reoccurring depression increases drastically, as well as actually paranoia. We need to come to terms and understand that we are not just physical beings. We are divine. We are eternal. When we forget ourselves, the physical body becomes real, and we start suffering the physical world. We need to fully understand that there is nothing outside of our own mind and perception. This is why not two people can describe the same event, location, thing, person, or anything exactly the same. More to come in the second part. Please like and follow for more. Be the light.